What's up? I'm Kylie. This is Practical Finance, and today I'm going to be going over the financial model and the business model of a cleaning company. So I did this because I had a comment and requested it, and I thought it would be a really good example to do. So I'm not going to talk too much. Let's just get right into it.
Okay, so here we go in Excel again, like every other project that we do. And I'm starting up here in the top left where I begin to label out my assumptions about what I think different prices and square footage and basically the revenue drivers of the business model, if that makes any sense. So I begin to think through like what is going to drive the revenue of a cleaning company and how do you calculate your prices and how do you calculate your profits. So some of those things are like your charge per square foot, the hours it takes you to clean a square foot, the supplies it takes you to clean a square foot, maybe the average number of cleaning days per week that you come into. Obviously, that multiplies out to cleaning days per month. Labor rates, payroll taxes, pay rates, all of these things factor into the eventual profitability of the cleaning company model. So, how many square feet can you do? How many square feet can you grow? What point do you need to go ahead and hire somebody to help you in order to grow? And how does that look from a profitability perspective? How does it look from a cash flow perspective? How are you getting your jobs? Are you paying a commission to realtors? A lot of different things like that really begin to factor into the revenue model and the profitability of a cleaning company. And it can give you a really good idea of different milestones you need to hit. So I'm going to go through and hit different assumptions or throw in some different assumptions that kind of start the model off. So let's say that we charge 25 cents a square foot, and we can take that and divide that into hours per square foot, then supplies per square foot. So we'll say it's $100 per thousand square feet that we clean in supplies. We work 5 days a week, give or take. You could say you work seven. You can work as much as you want, please, by all means. And then we multiply the 5 days per week times four, roughly, in order to get the cleaning days per month, give or take. So we could just basically say 30 divided by 7 is the cleaning days per month, and that'll actually make the cleaning days per week a little bit more accurate if we do that. So we can say we actually work about 21 days a week or a month. So we can come in and begin to figure out different things like this. So payroll tax is about 15%. We can assume we pay somewhere $15 to $18 an hour, and then we could take the labor rate, the fully loaded labor rate, which is the hourly rate plus the payroll tax. So it's 18 times 1 plus 15%, 1.15. And we'll say we'll grow about 5,000 square feet a month, and we'll pay a 10% commission to realtors as we go. So I'm just going to keep on adjusting some of these assumptions and just highlighting them in yellow that we can play with later on to help us recognize what we can go in and adjust and maybe even do some sensitivity analysis on. So now I'm going in and labeling out my months, maybe a year, make it 2 years or so we can make some real good assumptions over time, 20 months, 21 months, something like that. Go up here and label it years, year one, year two, year three, etc. And it's good to do your years, or I'm sorry, your months in numbers, and then you go on top of them and label the years, and that way you can use the number month as a multiplier or a way to kind of expand your model and forecast your growth. That way, because if it said year one or if it said January, you can't really use it as a multiplier, but you can use one or two or three as a multiplier. And that's the way I typically like to do it. It's easier to figure out that way. So now we're going to get into the real revenue drivers and make some starting assumptions. So we have the number of square feet cleaned in the first month, and then we're going to take that and we're going to add in the square foot of growth per month. So we know the next month is 15,000. We're just say we've got 10,000 square feet worth of work in the first month, and we make that yellow so it's adjustable. And then we kind of stretch that on out to month 21 as we go, and we need to adjust the cells, and there we go. And we made sure to lock in that cell B11 so that as we grew it out, it didn't move with us, and it allowed us to stretch it out in one go. So we say month one, we clean 10,000 square feet. We charge a quarter per square foot, so we now made $2,500 in revenue, and we can stretch that out over the course of 21 months and watch the revenue grow as long as the business grows. And so the next thing we do after we figure out the number of revenues we get, or the amount of revenue, is figure out the expenses associated with actually earning that revenue. The biggest one is probably labor, and then from there we can probably do some supplies and some commissions, everything that we figured out along the way, and some marketing. We've got to be able to grow. If we want to keep growing, we have to keep on trying to grow, and we have other auxiliaries like insurance and general administrative costs, things like that. And we could put a G&A rate over here in the assumptions as well to make a guess on. We could just say maybe 20% G&A can wind up being expensive, especially as a percentage of revenue when you're small. As you grow, G&A percentage of revenue tends to go down because it's not as big of a thing. The minimum costs for things like tax preparation for accounting and things like that are high enough to where it's a big percentage of your revenue once you're a small company. So we're going to start looking at labor. And labor is categorized or calculated by the number of square feet cleaned times your hours per square feet. And then you have to have your hourly rate, multiply that by your hourly rate, something I haven't done quite yet here. And not just your regular hourly rate, but your fully loaded hourly rate. And something looks a little off here. So we're saying it makes $62 in labor in order to clean 10,000 square feet. So let's kind of go back in here and see what's going on there. I think our hours per square foot is probably a little small there, but we'll come back in and adjust that as we move forward. So we calculate our supplies the same way. We calculate our supplies per square foot and multiplied that times the square feet cleaned. We can say we have a commission based on our revenue. 10% of our revenue, that's what we pay the realtors or whoever is getting us the pipeline for these jobs. So realtors are not a bad start. Generally, people selling their homes need their houses cleaned. And so, if you're good and can do it reasonable, then you might could reach out to some realtors to get you some initial business. We have a marketing rate, say 10% for ads, coupons, Google ads, Facebook ads, anything and everything you can. Maybe spend some of that marketing on a website to legitimize yourself. Everything else, insurance, we'll say about $250 or so a month is probably what you're going to wind up with. And then our G&A rate is multiplied by our revenue to get there. So how did we come out here? We can total our expenses and subtract them from revenue and get a rough idea of net, and then we can begin to kind of mull around with everything and do some analysis and see how realistic this looks. So our net income with these expenses is about $1,000, $1,087. That's with a very low labor rate, mind you. And then let's factor in some taxes. So the highest tax bracket is probably 35%. We'll just go ahead and say 35% here. Calculate our taxes on our net income. Subtract that from the net income, and then you get the net after-tax amount that you're putting in your pocket. So take a net income, subtract taxes, and you wind up with about $707 in your first month. Really, if you're paying yourself the labor, then that's not horrible. Let's take the margin, or let's get the margin. So we'll take our net after taxes and divide that by our revenue, and so we're keeping 28% of the money that we earned. A healthy business is probably somewhere 25 to 40% net margin. You don't find many businesses that allow you to have much more than 40 or 50% net margin. A 50% net margin business is a fantastic business. So this is not a horrible net margin. So we can copy this whole column and begin to stretch it out all the way over the course of the 21 months we had and start to look for different factors and analyze what we have going on with the growth. So this is the end of the year, 12 months, and you can see our margin is increasing slightly, and we can kind of begin to figure out why that is. But first, let's add up what we earned over the course of the first year and sum it, not not take it down there. So let's sum all these month 1 through 12, and that's about $37,183. We say estimate our hours per week is 40 or 50 or 60. If you're running the business, is probably a little bit more, so we'll say 50. And we say there's about 52 weeks per year, maybe 50 weeks per year, if you take a couple of them off. So you total that 50 times 50 is 2,500. Let's do that real quick here, and let's divide the 37,183 divided by the 2,500 to get the hourly wage that we're making by taking home this net. So we're making about $15 an hour, 14.87. That is after taxes. So that's not bad. Before taxes, it's about $18, $19 an hour. Really not horrible. You're doing your own thing with the idea of growing over time, and we can do it again for year 2. So same thing with year 2. We're going to have to expand it a little bit here and take month 21 and drag it out. You have to select a few of them so that it does it for you. And we drag it out 3 months here, and we can best fit those columns. Then we'll go back over here to year 2 net and do the same thing again, where we add up months 13 through 24, or sum them. Stretch that out over there and see what we came back with. About 99,000, so it's getting better. And we can say that we work 2,500 hours a week, or just copy this. I'm not a week, 2,500 hours over the course of year 2. And do the same math that we did for year 1, and to get our hourly wage. So we're going to take 99,000, basically 100,000 divided by 2,500, and it comes out to about $40 an hour. That's net of taxes once again, so that's realistically $50 to $55 an hour, which is probably you add 35% to that 100,000, all of a sudden you actually brought home. Or if you were getting a W-2 from a regular job, you'd be making $130,000 plus or minus. So let's get our year-over-year growth in wage. And so basically we take the hourly wage from year 2, subtract the hourly wage from year 1, and then divide it by the hourly wage for year 1. You make that a percent. It's about 168% growth. So we more than doubled. 100% growth. Be doubling. So we did pretty good. We did really good there, and we would like to move that forward into the future. What we haven't factored in here is some additional help or some additional labor, but the whole wage growth is about $25 an hour over the course of the year. And I mean, you would be hustling. Don't get me wrong. This would be a lot of work, but it's looking good, and it gives you some idea of what's possible here with realistic assumptions. So let's do a little bit more. Let's see how realistic the square feet cleaned is, and maybe change the revenue model up a little bit here too. So the average house size, we'll say, is 2,000 square feet. And I'm going to insert a line here to kind of do a little bit more. So we'll say the number of houses cleaned to, or the house equivalent. Yeah, the house equivalent. That's a little bit better. So we'll say that 10,000 square feet divided by the average house size, which is 2,000. It's 5 houses, and the revenue being 2,500 divided by 5, that would mean we're charging $500 a house, which all of a sudden doesn't seem very realistic at all. I think I, for one, would have a hard time paying somebody $500 to clean my house. So we will kind of begin to assess how realistic the model is to date, and make some changes to the assumptions to get it as realistic as possible. And so this is what I do. I go in and I test the model. I make sure that it's realistic from several different angles, mostly price related, because that's a big driver, obviously, of your revenue. So we're saying the average per house is $500. So that's where the charge per square foot comes in. Now we need to go in and change that down to where the average per house is something much more realistic, much more in line with the market. And so in order to get that, you could call around, you could look online, you could do a little bit of market research, but it's probably around $200 for a really good house cleaning with a 2,000 square foot house. So that takes our charge per square foot down to about 10 cents per square foot. So we can see how that adjusts or changes our model. All of a sudden, the year one net goes way down, and the year two net goes way down. But now we need to look at labor and see what the labor hours look like. So if we take the labor and divide it by the labor rate fully loaded, we can see that we spent 3 hours to clean 5 houses. All of a sudden, that doesn't look very realistic either, does it? So this is another little test to the model, and we have to subtract out that 3 just to get it ideal or get it perfect, because it's in line with what's being calculated into total expenses, and you can copy and paste that down. And we can drag this across to once we lock the cell in, to kind of test it and see what it looks like moving forward. So if we look over the course, we're spending 25 hours to do 42 houses. That's not even factoring in any travel time or anything else. Not very realistic. Not very realistic. We're probably doing a whole lot more than that. So the labor rate itself is pretty solid, but what's not good is the hours per square foot. It's going to be a lot more than what we have calculated initially. We need to go up and change what's being divided, or ultimately, I think we need to change the top number. So, forgot the plus sign here. See, I'm doing some figuring in real time. And let's see what that turned out. So labor hours now is 10 for 5 houses. It's a little more realistic, about $10 a house, give or take. Not $10, about 2 hours, per house. And that's a little bit better, but you see it's affecting the net as we go down. It might need to actually change a little bit more than that. Right now we have 1 over 1,000. Maybe 1 over 500 would be a little bit more realistic. So now we're saying it's going to take 4 hours per house. Gives us a little leeway from travel time perspective. Everything else, I think this is probably more realistic. This is something that you could actually expect to see if you were running your own business. The good part of all this is that if it's just you doing the cleaning, especially initially, then you're paying yourself this $18 an hour or so. And we can look and see in month 13, that's whenever we would hire someone. And that's based upon the number of hours per month that we're spending doing this. At that point, it's a full-time job, 140 hours a week. It's a full-time job to actually just do the cleaning, not to mention the other management of the company itself. So that's kind of where you get to where you must hire somebody. And you can take that $18 an hour and pay somebody to do the cleaning while you focus on growing the business, managing the business, and everything else. So you can look at these different things. So you could hire someone in month 5 once you kind of get to the labor rate is, you're spending $1,200 a month in labor. You could probably hire someone there part-time, 60 hours a month, 15 or so hours a week. And you could hire someone then and focus on growth. So if you could grow this to around 30,000 square feet per month is what you're cleaning, or maybe 15 houses per month, you could afford to actually hire someone, because your margin, look at that margin, is now 0. You've reached at least enough revenue to where you're not losing money, and you could pay someone. Now, you wouldn't be making any money, but you could focus on growth and maybe get to those numbers a little bit quicker. So now we can calculate some break-even square feet, which is essentially where you have 0 margin, give or take. But we can actually do the math here. And we could go up here to the top ribbon and click on data, maybe data analysis, and use the solver tool and solve for the exact number of square footage that gives us 0 on the margin line. Or we could come up here in our assumption box and start making some educated guesses based on that pink column. We know that 30,000 square feet gives us zero margin. So we can make some assumptions. Let's see, we're 26,000. Okay, that gives us a -1 margin in month one. So we need to go up a little bit. If we do maybe 27 or 28,000, then we can and see where it inches closer to. So 27,000 is that gives us zero, but so does 30. So let's see what 28,000 does. It's zero. So 29,000 is going to give us the same thing too. So we can assume that our break-even square feet is around 29,000 square feet, and we'll set that back to zero. Come back down here to break-even square feet, and we'll say roughly 29,000. So not the most thorough analysis, but it gives you the idea of how to do it. If you're not real familiar with the solver tool, you can just make some educated guesses. So we can look at different drivers of revenue, commissions, marketing, G&A, and make some adjustments over on the left side and kind of begin to really hone in on what you think you can do and make some assumptions over the course of 2 years. And you'll get pretty close. You can see, is this a risk that I'm willing to take? And am I making enough money, even if I'm paying myself the labor hours to make this worth my while? So, play with it, copy it, and see where you get.
Okay, so I hope that was beneficial and understandable. And if you have anything you'd like me to do, if you have any business models you'd like me to explore and do some basic analysis of, then let me know. Interact with me a little bit. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.